Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon to our friends in Europe. Happy Friday. Well, a ton of news has hit. Non-farm payrolls, pretty good. Market liked them. Apple earnings, not as good. Did I warn you guys that Apple was the one I was worried about yesterday? Did we talk about this? Yes. And, Apple, you've got the 21-day moving average down at about 199.77. So, things soften up here in the market. That's the case. The case Apple melts down. So currently, the S&P 500 is up 1%. It's hard for Apple to drop another $5 with the S&P 500 that strong. You'd have to see more money flowing out of Apple and into other places for the S&P to continue to hold that rally. So I don't have high expectations of a complete Apple meltdown today. So what's happening in markets? China. We've got Apple and Amazon earnings out. So we've got all the major earnings out. And then, the Russell 2000 looks strong. Bonds are soft because the economy looks all right, but that's actually okay. And then the VIX is getting absolutely punished today, down to 2283. VIX. And here, show my screen real fast, Justin, because this is important. This is the VIX curve. VIX is now trading below May, which is basically flat across the board here. This is huge, folks. This is the table setter for an incredible opportunity that's set up. Speaking of opportunities, and we can stop sharing my screen now. Speaking of opportunities, there are obviously, this is one of the more, what's the old Chinese proverb? May you live in interesting times. Well, I would say between tariffs, between everything going on in the Middle East, between the AI and the rare earth boom around computing, there are a lot of balls in the air out there. Now, to guide us through some of these geopolitical events, I've asked our expert on all things geopolitics, U.S. politics. Heck, he's even an expert on what's going on in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. That's how entrenched this man is in the world of policy. He is a fellow Villanova alum, but then went to some school. You might have heard of it called Duke for Law, and famously worked on both Capitol Hill and Wall Street, which makes him an incredibly valuable asset on the investing side and on the swing trading side. So he is bringing us three important opportunities this morning that he's seeing out there in the geopolitical world. So with that, let's bring on my favorite lawyer and yours, Francis J. Gregory. Frank, good to see you. Happy Friday.
Thank you. Do people actually have favorite lawyers? I didn't know that was a thing.
Nobody's got a favorite lawyer till they get sued. Then they've got a favorite lawyer.
Then you need them.
All right. So Frank, we were, I was planning on coming out on by myself, just going through markets. And then we were talking, I believe Wednesday, about all the things that you were seeing. And we kind of did a shift and said, oh, we gotta get Frank in front of people and get him talking. So Frank, you've got three big opportunities that you see out there that you want to go through with the audience. Let's have you dig in. What are your three opportunities and why are they so important? And then we'll talk about what we're going to do about it a little bit later.
Sure. I mean, I'm obviously. I mean, you're you're not doing your job if you're not looking at tariffs and the trade war right now. So certainly big area there. There was a Ukraine mineral deal that just was announced by the administration. It's a bit of a false flag, and we're going to get into that. But I think it'll be good for some of the stocks we've been looking at. And then, Middle East is being impacted by falling oil prices at the moment. And again, that's going to have some impact. And all of these things start layering together. Then you throw in, budget just came out, huge defense bump. And a lot of that ties in because when you declare, like for instance, critical minerals as national security concerns, suddenly they start falling under policy areas that they might not have traditionally. So all these things start tying together. But certainly, the trade war and the tariffs, particularly with China. Let's start there, Mark. And we put we're considering putting more tariffs on China. A lot of the tariffs that were talked about, Canada, Mexico, they again, false flags in my mind. They were more just negotiation points that the administration was trying to accomplish other tasks, and they did it with these nonsensical tariff policies with some friendlies. China, though, it's gonna be on. It's gonna be lasting, and and it's nothing new. I mean, we've been putting tariffs on Chinese goods, not as broad as this, but we've been putting tariffs on Chinese goods for a long time. Throughout the Biden administration, for instance, the chips, and a lot of critical tech, we were throwing tariffs on them. So this is nothing new from that standpoint, but it has gotten bigger, and certainly with China retaliating, it's having a pretty good impact. And I think you're going to see some tech names doing well with this, but certainly other sectors are that are going to get caught in some supply chain kerfuffles, if you will, are going to get hurt. So and you've already seen some of the Detroit autos coming out and saying we don't know what's happening right now. So I think you got some tech is selective, as you pointed out at the top of the show. Selective tech is going to do well, but I think autos, the auto industry is going to have some headwinds for a while.
One interesting point Tim Cook made in Apple's conference call, and I'm sure you made note of this, was that Apple is moving its supply chains out of China and into Vietnam and India. Yep. There are everyone I talk to that is an expert on China, that is not of Asian, that is not from the region, is extremely bearish the next decade in China. What is going on there? How has, a lot of people argue that these tariffs are like permanently moving money out of the United States. But there's definitely been some moves in China. How do you feel like the puzzle pieces fit here in terms of economics, a year from now between United States, Europe, China, Australia, Japan, and really, I think India, the sleeping giant, is another one that I'd love your thoughts on. What do you see out there when you see all the puzzle pieces spread out?
Yeah, look, I mean, India has been, advocating for this move from China to India for a long time now. I mean, Modi's been a huge advocate of, saying, look, you want cheap labor, we got cheap labor. You got, we got as much of it as you want, and so they've been, India has been welcoming that role for quite some time, and they're certainly going to do everything they can to help that move. China's got problems. I mean, you can't centrally run an economy for a long time and think that you're actually a capitalistic, country. It just doesn't work that way. That's not the reality. And they've got a demographic problem. Their society is shrinking. They're getting older, and they're not populating up. And a lot of the young folks that are populating up are moving to other parts of the world. They're getting out. They're not doing those base jobs that their parents and grandparents were, forced to do. So, there's a definite demographic shift that is not favoring China right now. Australia is interesting because Australia is a great way for American companies to get around a lot of the problems that, like if we can't sell to this country, we can't sell to that country, we can sell to Australia, and Australia just pumps it right through. And you actually see that a lot in my world, in the defense sector world, where if you want to sell something to a place you really shouldn't be selling it to, go through Australia. So so I think they are becoming, with the focus on the South China Sea and potential Taiwanese problems, Australia is taking on a bigger and bigger role in the region.
It's the Texas of the British Commonwealth, as they say.
Yes.
So those are all really interesting. And so now the next piece, and this is another area where the Trump administration is definitely lauding this: energy prices. But energy prices have a cascading effect. Falling energy prices to a certain extent are great for the United States. There's a point where they actually get too cheap and it affects our own production jobs.
Yeah.
We're not there yet. But $40 oil is not good for the U.S. economy. Just think about it that way. But the Middle East is in kind of a different scenario, right? They got, and you got the Houthis in Oman, Yemen. Right? Oh, Yemen. Did I say Oman? I meant Yemen. You've got
they're fun loving.
Yeah. You've still got unrest in Damascus, which is the capital of Syria, folks. And then you've got the Iranians, pretty isolated. But all of these countries rely on oil pricing. So how is this slide in oil affecting things geopolitically with the Middle East and really worldwide?
Well, I think, but what's oil? It's in the mid 60s right now, I think. If you look at long term, and look, Saudi obviously is one you want to look at, and the Saudis have always said, you start dipping below that $70 number, and they start getting real nervous, and we're below it. So that has a vast impact across the entire region, and all those countries. I mean, name the country that's not relying on oil there, and by the way, with the exception of some money centers like Dubai, tell me what their next biggest export is.
Do they have another export?
No, I mean the Saudis right now, ironically, we will talk about critical minerals. They are actually bringing a lot of brain power from the U.S. from mining and from other countries to Saudi to try and build up a mining business, but that's decades away.
Mining would make some sense there. Do they do a lot in nat gas besides oil? I mean, you would think with or is it just not practical in a region that doesn't need heating usually?
No, and they're not going to compete against Russia with that, right? So
okay,
yeah.
I have no idea. Weapons. That would be my best guess. Weapons resale.
Weapons resale. Yes. No, they do some big shows there. So I think it's going to have an impact all around, and then that starts tying into the auto industry here. It's going to have cumulative effects on that as well.
All right, now, and you just made allusions to this. We've got this rare earth. Now, you have, for those of you unaware, Frank helped bring a rare earth company to the market, bring it public. Ticker symbol USAR. That's USA Resources.
USA Rare Earth.
Or USA Rare Earth, excuse me.
Getting hammered, by the way, over the last couple of years. Yeah, it's getting hammered a little bit. Well, what happened is they announced a $75 million pipe investment. And the mark, you do a $75 million follow-on investment, it's not going to help the stock price in the short term. So still liking it, obviously. They're doing well. They're making good moves, but it's down a little bit. Whereas Mountain Pass, they're running mid-20s now. They are up. They're strong. They are. USA Rare Earth is going to be the first one to do a complete mine to magnet supply chain in the U.S. But Mountain Pass is currently taking materials out of the ground where at the moment USA Rare Earth is relying on bringing the actual magnet manufacturing to the market before they actually do any mining. So The mining just takes, which is what we'll get into in a second with this deal. It just takes a long time to bring a mine to operation. Mountain Pass has it. They're taking materials out of the ground. Dirty little secret with them. They are partially owned by the CCP, but we'll call them a U.S. company.
It's partial.
But it's funny because what that does is it makes China leave them alone. China is very aggressive with its policies around rare earth. They kind of give Mountain Pass a pass because they do have an ownership structure in it. So it gets a little interesting from a geopolitical standpoint.
Interesting. So, so when Frank is discussing these, he speaks from a position of extreme authority. All right, so let's talk about this rare earth deal, right?
Yeah.
It's much ballyhooed. This is apparently this is our payoff for the how many billions of dollars have we shipped in weapons and dollar support over to Ukraine? Quite a few.
The hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yes. Well, you would argue that hundreds of billions of dollars worth of, if we get that much in rare earth back, it might be worth it. You could argue. But you have some thoughts on the new deal.
Yeah, look, well, it's just practical, right? The administration, Trump ran on one of his policies was they're going to pay us back, right? We gave all this money, they owe us, they're going to pay us back. Now, we did cut a deal, though, that said, we're not going to make you pay us back for the weapons. So how are you going to pay us back? And he needed to fulfill that campaign promise. So he's been working on this deal. The good part about it is hopefully, these kind of things will keep pushing the peace process that we want, right? But the interesting thing, they cut this big deal, $300 billion of minerals. I was looking at it this morning because I wanted to be accurate. Over 50% of the mines in question are currently under Russian control.
Oh, lovely.
And the other, and like another 40% are within an unsafe boundary of Russian control. So, and by the way, a lot of these areas are areas that Russia has said, we've annexed it. We're not giving it back. Whatever peace deal you think is going to happen, we're not giving these parts of the land back. So, so yes, we've cut a big deal. I don't know how we're going to access it. A, B, I think there's 5 or 6 mines in question here. Not a single one is currently operating. So, just the simple fact, as we just said earlier, it takes a long time to bring a mine to operation. And if you're in a contested area, it's going to take longer. And if you Google Earth where some of these are, it's not hospitable country. Even if there was no war, these are not areas with good infrastructure and access. So, the first thing you got to do with the mine is one of the reasons like USA Rare Earth was an attractive mining project because it happened to be the mine was in a spot and it had all this beautiful infrastructure already built around it. So it causes a very low capex to bring a mine like that up. This is going to be, massive from a capex standpoint to get these things going. And B, they just take a long time. So yeah, it's a good deal on paper. It checks a box for the administration to say, we were going to do this. We told you we would. We did. Bravo. But does it really have any impact for us? No. And it continues with China really clamping down on the exports of rare earth. I think it's going to help the Mountain Passes of the world, the USA Rare Earths of the world. And as we continue to build out our supply chains, if you look at what's a negative. Well, if China really wanted to hurt the U.S.'s efforts to build this up, they just open up the floodgates again, flood the market with their rare earth, drive the price down, and drive young companies out of business. That would be their aggressive move. But again, to some degree, like with the Mountain Pass, they actually hurt themselves if they do that. So there's reasons why they might not want to.
Yeah, they're in an interesting spot. Do they flood the market or do they cut off? Because like we're seeing chips come out of China and there's extreme price controls and export controls on chips, just like we're seeing nature or necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Oh yeah.
So, a couple questions I know everyone is asking, and folks, if you have questions for Frank, please ask. Where does this peace deal end up? Right? We now have a dog in this race, right? We have a horse in this race now, right? Because we've got billions of theoretical dollars on the line. That changes our position negotiating, being a mediator between Russia and Ukraine. Where does all this land in the end?
It's a tough one. I mean, it's a great question, Mark. And I mean, trying to look out and be the armchair prognosticator of this. It's tough because Russia has been very firm in their stance that there's certain pieces of land they're not going to give back. Mm-hmm. And on the flip side, Ukraine has been very adamant that there's no peace deal unless we get this land back. Trump has kind of said, I think he's kind of coming in and being Trump, where he just, is very blunt about statements. And he just said, look, fact of the matter is, you're not going to get all your land back. Deal with it, accept it, let's move on. Whether or not he can convince the Ukrainians to do that will be the linchpin in whether or not we get a peace deal anytime soon. At least they're talking. At least they're moving in the right direction, and that's positive. And we would love to get this done and behind us. Where do the insiders feel this is going? I can tell you from on the defense sector side, very few companies are building weapons platforms for Ukraine. They've already they've moved on. They are focusing on South China Sea, some issues in Africa, but they're not looking at Ukraine as a test bed of new weapon systems.
All right. Yeah, Andrew asks, how do we mediate a peace when we are supplying intel and military gear? That's more of a thought, but it is a fair thought.
Well, when have we not done that? I mean, we're pretty good at that. I mean, look at where we're trying to mediate peace, right? Middle East, Ukraine, we're heavy-handed in all those, mm-hmm. In all those areas. Look, it would be nice to. We had in the first Trump administration, we had relative calm in the world. It would be nice to get that back. I think it would help the markets a lot. So, from a trading standpoint, I would like to see that. Every headline has an impact, and if we can limit, the crazy headlines, I think that would be beneficial.
All right. Well, we got about three more minutes here. Frank, are there any specific? Now, I know we already been talking about Mountain Pass. Are there any other? And USAR, obviously, you can't. But you have a let's say a conflict of interest in discussing that.
I do, and look, and to be fair, my holdings, I'm locked up. I can't even trade what I own at the moment. Yeah. So I've got a lockup clause. So I just need to watch the roller coaster for a while. There you go. But look, I think one of the things that is coming back on my radar screen, particularly with the oil and the power situation, the SMR market. So the small reactor market, I think, is and obviously the ticker symbol SMR is one of those. But I've been hearing a lot, like just a couple of investor conferences. Nuclear has been a hot topic again. It had kind of died out late last year, and I'm starting to hear a lot of chirping about the small reactors again.
Oh, interesting.
And I don't know if you saw, there was a headline, China just announced, and whether or not it's true, we'll wait to see, that they just brought the first thorium reactor online. And if that's the case, that could be an interesting new area of tech, and it lends well to the small reactor market. It's much better, much safer nuclear technology if, in fact, they were able to bring a thorium reactor online.
Interesting. Yeah.
Thorium. It's yeah. So it's it's interesting. The reason they're safer is in a thorium reactor. Like a normal fusion, you put rods into the material to dampen the fusion, and obviously, if you can't get the rods in or whatever, that can be a problem. In thorium reactors, you put the rods in to cause the reaction. So it works in the opposite direction, and it becomes and so it's much easier to to shut down if there's a problem. And they build them with salt casings, and the salt with the thorium instantly neutralizes it. So they're just much safer reactors if they got to kill them.
Interesting. Well, if you see a thorium reactor company pop up in the United States, that's one you're after. So like the two small nuclear reactor, there's three players in that. You've got SMR, which is which is New Scale Power. You've got Oklo, all right, which is another nuclear reactor company. And then, you maybe a little bigger company people have heard of, General Electric. Is pretty heavily involved in this situation. SMR is your favorite of the three. Are there any other names in the industry that you watch closely?
Mark, yes, and I just completely had a senior moment on it, but I will get it to you so you can blast it out to everybody. But yeah, there was one that went public through a SPAC last year. They're small, super nimble, and I think Andrew and I did look at it, and there was just not enough volume to make it an attractive trade. But they've been doing some good stuff. I'll get you the name, and maybe we should relook at it. But SMR, SMR's got amazing technology. They just can't. They keep getting contracts and losing them, getting them, losing them, getting them, losing them. They need to hold on to it. It's like the old Jerry Seinfeld, right? You take the reservation, but you don't keep the reservation. So I like them. They've got great tech. They just need to hold on to the reservation.
All right. Well, earnings are the 12th for that one. GE's already done, and Oklo is the 13th. So you got a couple of interesting earnings. Interestingly, the price of the options on these names, not really pricing in a lot of earnings move. The options are pretty darn cheap. So, I'm going to take a hard look at this, at a couple of these today and Monday, because they're not charging you for earnings at all. All right. Well, Frank, so there you have it, folks. Today, we just kind of updated you on the market, and then Frank came on. He gave you a deep dive into tariff effects. We talked about minerals and the war in Ukraine, and then we and that was sandwiched in between that was a discussion around energy and oil in the Middle East. And then Frank threw out a couple of small nuclear reactor companies he likes, notably SMR. Frank, thank you for your time. As always, it's always a pleasure and always fun. I'm liking that new kid that Villanova got from Kentucky. So pretty excited about the team Kevin Willard is putting together. Womp womp, Maryland. And see, Frank's got it the best, because when Villanova's going through its low points, he's got Duke in the Final Four, and when Duke's going through its low points, he's got Villanova hitting national championship titles from half court.
I got a lot of shirts and hats, Mark.
And he was there in '85 too. So he's just kind of got the best of everything when it comes to college basketball.
Well, if you're going to go long on a team, go Michigan State for next year, because my daughter's going there, and the Gregorys bring good.
The Gregory's big good basketball. I see that. All right, folks. My masterclass today kicks off at in approximately 2.5 hours. We've got literally 2 slots open right now. So if you'd like to join, pick up the phone, give my team a call, 888-872-3301. Click the link above. You also get access to my 5 trades I'm doing post earnings. They're already setting up very nicely, and I may be putting out a trade as early as today, my special situation people. All right, Frank, thanks again for your time.
Always
so for my favorite lawyer and yours, Frank, Gregory, I'm Mark Sebastian. I am your only option. Have a great, great weekend, everybody.